All right, well, now why don't we turn to Karen Grant. Karen, you want to sort of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what happened when you were diagnosed, how old were you, what was the course of events, and how things went through what was really an extensive treatment, and when was that, and how are things now, and
Sure.
what did you learn?
Well, my name is Karen Grant. I am 35 years old, and when I first came to the International Mesothelioma program, it was back in 2004. I was 29 years old at the time, and my only symptom was a cough, and this cough led to pneumonia, and I ended up collapsing my left lung. And I saw, before I came here, actually, I saw another thoracic surgeon, and when he went to inflate my lung, that's when he noticed the tumor, and he said it may be mesothelioma. So he referred me immediately right to Dr. Sugarbaker, and I came in to see him. And the first meeting that I had with him, he said, "Why don't we do a scope of your right lung to see if there's any mesothelioma there?" So we did the scope.
Your initial collapse was on the left side?
My initial collapse was on the left side. So we did a scope of the right lung, and after 10 days after surgery, I met with him, and he told me I had it on both lungs. And when he told me this, I felt like I had been struck by lightning, because I immediately went into the 5Ws, being a former news reporter and broadcaster. I wanted to ask him all these questions, like who, what, when, where, why. And he stopped me in my tracks, and he says, "Well, wait a minute, don't worry about that." He said, "Let me just concentrate on treating you." And one of the most important things he told me was to just be in the moment. He said, "Let me worry about treating you, and you just focus on being in the moment." And when I first heard I had mesothelioma, I said, "Meso what?" I didn't know how I could have had it. And, I've never smoked, I've never done anything that would lead to me having cancer. And, I was shocked. How does somebody at 29 years old get this disease on both lungs? And basically, in hindsight, going back 5 years earlier, when I saw him 5 years earlier, he had noticed it on my left lung. He looked at the x-rays, and I said, "Well, why didn't you say anything to me 5 years ago?" He said, well, who has mesothelioma at 24 years old? When I was sitting in Dr. Sugarbaker's office, I felt like I really was alone, even though I knew I wasn't, but I was the youngest person there. And, I said, "What am I doing here?" I was trying to figure out why. But then I met Dr. Sugarbaker and his team, and they gave me all the hope in the world. I mean, I believe I was your first bilateral patient, and that just said, what, if he can take me on, I get all the hope in the world to live. And there were some tough times, because we had the surgery on both lungs. I spent 114 days in the hospital, but while I was here...
Can you talk a little bit about the rehab hospital?
The rehab hospital was great. I went there to get myself weaned off the trach, which I did successfully. But they had me up and walking. They had two different types of therapy. One was occupational, and one was physical therapy. And basically, physical therapy was the exercises. Occupational was more doing stuff at home, like folding laundry, cooking, taking a shower.
And so overall, would you say that your rehab experience was a positive one?
It was a positive one, yes. It was very positive.
Because sometimes I think patients don't really have a place to put a rehab hospital in their recovery, and it can sometimes be so very helpful. And I think in your case,
it was
from
a
your
very good
experience,
it was. It was great, and I came home, and in September, and a month later, I started traditional chemotherapy, and had 4 rounds every 3 weeks. And I'd say that was probably the toughest part, but I made it through. And almost a year to the date of being diagnosed, I was told that I was cancer-free. And that really surprised me, because I